I found out my cousin was actually my sister on Christmas Eve, not from a heartfelt confession or a DNA test, but from a drunk argument over who got to put the star on top of the tree. My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 26, and until 3 years ago, I thought I had the most boring, predictable family in suburban Michigan. Mom worked at the library, Dad sold insurance, and every Thanksgiving we'd drive to Grand Rapids to see my aunt's family. That's where I'd see Riley, my cousin, my best friend since we were kids trading silly bands on the playground. We grew up sharing secrets, stealing each other's clothes, finishing each other's sentences. She was the sister I never had. Except she wasn't my cousin at all. The truth came out at 11:47 p.m. on December 24th, 2022, in my parents' living room that still smelled like pine needles and my mom's famous snickerdoodles. And when I say it came out, I mean it exploded like a bomb that had been ticking underneath our family photos for 26 years. By midnight, I was standing in the snow outside my childhood home, watching my entire life rewrite itself in real time, wondering how many more lies were buried under our perfectly decorated Christmas tree. If you think family secrets are messy, just wait until you hear how deep this goes. The people who kept this from me are probably the same type who'd scroll past this video without hitting that like button. Don't be like them. Subscribe so you don't miss what happened next, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and turn on notifications because trust me, this story gets darker before it gets anywhere close to light. Growing up in Dearborn, Michigan meant long winters, Friday night high school football games, and the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone's business. Or at least they thought they did. My family was textbook normal. Dad, Robert Brooks, wore khakis and golf polos even on weekends. Mom, Patricia, organized the church bake sales and kept our house so clean you could eat off the bathroom floor. I was their only child, which I used to complain about constantly. "You're so lucky you have Riley," I'd tell my parents every time we drove back from Grand Rapids. "I wish I had a sister." Mom would get this weird look on her face, something I couldn't quite read, and Dad would turn up the radio. I never thought much of it. Parents are weird. That's just what they do. Riley and I were born 6 months apart. Her mom, my Aunt Diane, had her in March, and I came along in September. We were close enough in age that people sometimes thought we were twins, despite looking nothing alike. I had my dad's dark hair and sharp features. Riley had these soft blonde waves and green eyes that every boy in high school fell over themselves for. But we moved through life like we were connected by an invisible string. Same taste in music, we went through an embarrassing Jonas Brothers phase, same dreams, we were both going to move to New York and become fashion designers. Same inside jokes that made no sense but us. When Riley's parents divorced during our sophomore year, she spent more and more time at our house. Her dad, Uncle Mike, moved to Arizona and basically disappeared into his new life. Aunt Diane got increasingly bitter, working double shifts at the GM plant and drinking Chardonnay from a box while watching reality TV. Riley would show up at our door with her backpack, and my mom would set an extra plate at dinner without asking questions. "Your mom's good people," Riley said once, lying on my bedroom floor when we studied for AP history. "You're stuck with us, weirdo. That's what family's for." Family. That word meant everything to me back then. It felt solid, unbreakable, true. After high school, Riley went to Michigan State while I stayed local at University of Michigan Dearborn, living at home to save money. We texted constantly, visited each other on weekends, and every Christmas, without fail, our families came together. It was tradition, sacred. The Christmas of 2022 should have been perfect. I'd just gotten promoted to junior graphic designer at the marketing firm where I had been working since graduation. Riley had finished her nursing degree and landed a job at Spectrum Health. We were both finally adulting successfully, and for once, both single during the holidays. No awkward boyfriend dynamics to navigate. "This is gonna be the best Christmas ever," Riley said when she arrived on December 23rd, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her signature vanilla perfume. Just us and the family, like old times. She had no idea she was about to detonate our entire world. Christmas Eve started normally enough. Mom was in the kitchen by 7 a.m., prepping her honey-glazed ham. Dad was untangling lights for the tree, a fresh Douglas fir he'd picked up from the lot on Michigan Avenue. I made coffee and scrolled through Instagram, half watching the Macy's parade on TV. Aunt Diane arrived around noon, and I noticed immediately that something was off. She looked haggard, older than her 52 years, and she'd brought a bottle of vodka instead of her usual cheap wine. Starting early, Riley joked, but there was an edge to her voice. It's Christmas, Aunt Diane said flatly, pouring herself a drink before she'd even taken off her coat. The afternoon crawled by with that weird tension hovering over everything. Mom kept glancing at Aunt Diane nervously. Dad retreated to the garage, claiming he needed to organize his tools, which he never did. Riley and I decorated sugar cookies and tried to pretend everything was fine. But I could feel it, something heavy and wrong pressing down on all of us. By evening, Aunt Diane was drunk. Not tipsy fun drunk, but mean drunk. She'd picked at dinner, made passive-aggressive comments about Mom's cooking, and laughed too loud at things that weren't funny. "Remember when we were young, Patty?" she said, using Mom's old nickname in a way that sounded like an accusation. "Before everything got so complicated." Mom's hand trembled as she passed the green beans. "Diane, maybe we should what?" Aunt Diane's voice rose. "Keep pretending? Keep playing happy family?" Riley and I exchanged looks. Dad cleared his throat and suggested we move to the living room for presents. It was barely 8 p.m., way earlier than we usually did gifts, but nobody argued. That's when things started falling apart. We were in the living room, the tree lights twinkling, Bing Crosby on the stereo, everyone trying desperately to recreate normalcy. Riley and I were debating who should put the star on top of the tree, a silly tradition we'd fought over since we were kids. This year, I grabbed it first. "My house, my star," I said, laughing. "You did it last year." "Did not." "Did too." It was stupid, childish, the kind of argument that should have ended in laughter. But Aunt Diane, slumped in the armchair with her vodka tonic, suddenly slammed her glass down. "Just let her do it, Riley. She's her daughter." The room stilled. Riley blinked. "What?" "The star. Let Natalie put the star up. She's Patricia's daughter. You're not." My mom's face went white. "Diane, stop!" "Why?" Aunt Diane stood up, swaying slightly. "Why should I stop? I've been stopping for 26 years. I'm tired, Patty. I'm so goddamn tired." Riley's voice was small, confused. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I was frozen, the stars still in my hand, my brain trying to process words that didn't make sense. Aunt Diane laughed bitterly. "You really don't know? They never told you?" She turned to Riley, her eyes glassy with tears and rage. "Patricia is your mother, baby, not me. I just raised you." The star fell from my hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The only sound was Bing Crosby singing about a white Christmas, absurdly cheerful against the bomb that had just gone off. Riley looked at my mom. Our mom. "What is she talking about?" Mom's face crumpled. She pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks, and I realized I'd never seen my mother cry before, not once in my entire life. Dad stood up. "Diane, you need to leave." "Oh, now you want to throw me out?" Aunt Diane laughed, that horrible broken laugh again. "After I did everything for you? After I gave up my whole life so you could keep your perfect reputation?" "Mom," I heard myself say, my voice strange and distant. What is she saying? Mom finally looked at me, and the guilt in her eyes told me everything before she said a word. I was 17, a senior in high school. Robert and I had been dating for a year, and we made a mistake. I got pregnant. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of the couch to steady myself. My parents were strict. Mom continued, the words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. Religious. They would have disowned me. Robert's family, too. We were just kids. We didn't know what to do. So you gave her away? Riley's voice was sharp, accusing. You gave me to Aunt Diane? She offered, Dad said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken, and he looked 10 years older. Diane was 24, already married to Mike. She said she'd raise you as her own. That way we could finish school, go to college. That way no one would know. Diane laughed again, that awful sound. Saint Diane, that's what I was supposed to be. Saving my little sister from ruin, taking in her mistake. She turned to Riley. Do you know what it cost me? Mike never wanted kids. The marriage fell apart because I insisted on keeping you, raising you like you were mine. He knew. He always knew you weren't really ours. And he left. Riley was shaking, her face red. So all of this, my entire life, has been a lie? We wanted to tell you, Mom sobbed so many times. We wanted to tell you. But years passed, and it got harder and harder. You were happy? You and Natalie were so close. We thought it was better this way. I finally found my voice. Better? You thought lying to us for our entire lives was better? You don't understand, Dad said. No, I don't. I was shouting now. Riley isn't my cousin. She's my sister. My sister. And you never thought that was something we deserved to know? Riley backed toward the door, her chest heaving. I need to get out of here. Riley, wait! Mom reached for her, but Riley jerked away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. She grabbed her coat and ran out the front door into the snow. I didn't even think. I grabbed my own coat and followed her. I found Riley sitting on the curb 2 houses down, her breath coming in clouds in the December cold. Christmas lights blinked cheerfully on the houses around us, red, green, white, like the world hadn't just ended. I sat down next to her. Neither of us said anything for a long time. My whole life is fake, Riley finally said. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, it's all bullshit. I know. Do you, though? She turned to me, her eyes fierce. Because you still have parents who wanted you. I'm just the mistake they gave away. The words hit like a punch. Riley, that's not... Isn't it? She stood up abruptly, pacing in the snow. They kept you. They raised you. They gave me to Aunt Diane like I was a problem to solve. And then they just pretended. For 26 years, they pretended I was your cousin instead of your sister. Do you know how messed up that is? I did. God, I did. And Diane, Riley continued, her voice breaking, she's not even my mom. She's just some woman who agreed to raise me out of, what, pity? Obligation? No wonder she's so bitter. No wonder she drinks. She spent her whole adult life raising someone else's kid while her sister got to have the perfect family. We're not perfect, I said quietly. No. You're just liars. The word stung, but I couldn't argue. I thought about every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every casual conversation where Mom and Dad and Aunt Diane had perpetuated the lie. I thought about all the times Riley and I had talked about being as close as sisters, not knowing we actually were. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted. I don't know how to process it. Riley wiped her eyes. Yeah, well, join the club. We sat in silence until the cold became unbearable. When we finally walked back to the house, it was past midnight. Christmas Day. Technically, the best day of the year. It felt like the worst. Inside, Aunt Diane was gone. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, waiting. They looked like they'd aged a decade in the past 2 hours. We need to talk about this, Dad said. Really talk. What's there to talk about? Riley's voice was cold. You gave me away. End of story. It wasn't that simple. Then explain it to me. Explain how you could look at me every holiday, every birthday, and not tell me the truth. Explain how you could let me call Diane Mom when you're my actual mother. Mom flinched. Because I thought it was the right thing to do for everyone. No, I interrupted. You thought it was the right thing for you. So you didn't have to deal with the shame or the responsibility. You pawned her off on Aunt Diane and got to keep your perfect life. Dad's jaw tightened. That's not fair, Natalie. None of this is fair, I shouted. You lied to us, both of us. You made me grow up thinking I was an only child when I had a sister. You robbed us of that relationship. You were close, Mom protested weakly. You and Riley were always close. As cousins, not as sisters. There's a difference. The argument went in circles for over an hour. Mom and Dad tried to explain their reasoning, how young they had been, how different things were in the late 90s, how they'd convinced themselves they were doing the right thing. But every explanation just sounded like another excuse. Finally, Riley stood up. I can't be here right now. I can't look at any of you. Where will you go? Mom asked, panicked. It's Christmas. I'll figure it out. Riley grabbed her bag. I've been figuring things out on my own, my whole life, apparently. She left, just walked out into the snowy Christmas morning and drove away in her Honda Civic with the broken taillight. I should have followed her, but I was angry too. Angry at my parents, angry at the situation, angry that the person I'd trusted most in the world had turned out to be built on a foundation of lies. I went up to my childhood bedroom and didn't come out for the rest of Christmas Day. The days after Christmas were weird. Riley wasn't answering my calls or texts. Mom cried constantly. Dad threw himself into work even though his office was closed for the holidays. I moved through my parents' house like a ghost, sleeping on the couch, eating leftover ham, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be now that my entire family tree had been redrawn. On December 28th, I drove to Riley's apartment in Grand Rapids. She lived in a small one-bedroom near the hospital where she worked, decorated with plants and vintage concert posters. I'd helped her move in 6 months ago, spent weekends there watching Netflix and eating Thai food. She answered the door but didn't invite me in. What do you want, Natalie? To talk! To figure this out! There's nothing to figure out. Her voice was flat, empty. They lied. End of story. I'm your sister! That's not nothing! For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Pain, longing, something. But then her expression hardened. I don't know what I am anymore. I need space. She closed the door in my face. I sat in my car in her parking lot and cried harder than I had since finding out, because the worst part wasn't the lie. The worst part was losing Riley. My cousin, my best friend, my sister, whatever she was, she'd been the one constant in my life. And now she was gone. I couldn't let it go. Over the next few weeks, I started digging into the story, trying to piece together the truth behind the lie. I found my parents' old yearbooks in the attic. Robert Brooks and Patricia Murphy, class of 1997. They looked impossibly young, smiling at the camera with their whole lives ahead of them. I found my baby book, filled with photos and milestones meticulously documented by Mom. But there is nothing about Riley. No mention of a pregnancy before mine. No indication that they'd had a child before me. I called my grandmother, Mom's mother, who still lived in the same house in Detroit where Mom had grown up. Grandma, I need to ask you about something. There was a long pause. Your mother told me what happened. So it's true? All of it? Another pause. Patricia was 17. Your father was 18. They were babies themselves. We thought we were helping. By forcing her to give up her daughter? No one forced anyone, Grandma said sharply. Diane offered. She was married, stable. It seemed like the best option for everyone involved. Everyone except Riley. Grandma sighed. Diane wanted a baby. Mike was ambivalent, but Diane was desperate. When Patricia got pregnant, it felt like a solution. 2 problems solved at once. Riley wasn't a problem to solve. She was a person. I know that now, Grandma said quietly. But hindsight is easy, honey. At the time, we were all just trying to do what we thought was right. I hung up, feeling worse than before. Because nobody in the story was a villain. They were just people who'd made choices that seemed reasonable at the time, not realizing those choices would echo for decades. By mid-January, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I drove back to Riley's apartment, and this time I didn't leave when she tried to close the door. "We need to talk about this," I said, pushing inside. "Really talk. Not just you shutting me out because you're angry. I have every right to be angry. I know. I'm angry too. But we didn't do this, Riley. We're both victims here." She laughed bitterly. "You're not a victim. You got the good life. You got the parents who wanted you, the stable home, the normal childhood. I got Diane's resentment and Mike's abandonment and a lie that I swallowed like it was truth. That's not fair. Life's not fair." She was shouting now. "Don't you get it? I spent my whole life feeling like something was wrong with me, like I didn't quite fit anywhere. My dad left, my mom drank, and meanwhile you had this perfect family that I was jealous of, and now I find out that perfect family was actually mine, that I was supposed to be part of it, but they didn't want me." They were scared. Stupid teenagers who made a terrible decision. A decision they never fixed. A decision they doubled down on for 26 years. Riley's hands were shaking. "Do you know what this does to a person? Finding out your entire identity is a lie? I don't even know who I am anymore. Diane isn't my mom. Patricia is. But Patricia raised you, not me. So what does that make us?" "Sisters," I said firmly. "It makes us sisters." Riley's face crumbled. "I don't know how to be your sister when I'm still trying to figure out if I'm anybody at all." We both cried then, standing in her tiny living room, surrounded by plants that needed watering and dirty dishes in the sink. We cried for the childhood we'd lost, for the relationship that had been stolen from us, for the lies that had shaped our lives. When the tears finally stopped, Riley looked at me with exhausted eyes. "I need time. I need to figure out who I am without the lie. I can't do that with you or them or anyone reminding me of what was taken." "How much time?" "I don't know." It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the only one she had. The months that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Riley blocked me on social media, changed her number, essentially disappeared. Mom was a wreck, barely functioning. Dad tried to hold everything together, but mostly just looked defeated. I threw myself into work, picking up extra projects, staying late at the office, anything to avoid thinking about the sister-shaped hole in my life. But at night, alone, in my apartment, I'd moved out of my parents' house in February. I'd scroll through old photos of Riley and me. Halloween costumes, high school graduation, that road trip to Chicago we took after I turned 21. We looked happy. We looked like family. Because we were a family. We just hadn't known it. In March, I wrote Riley a letter. An actual physical letter, on paper, because texts felt too casual and phone calls were impossible. I didn't know where to send it, so I mailed it to her apartment and hoped she was still living there. "Dear Riley, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you're ready to hear from me. But I need to say some things, and if this ends up in your trash unopened, at least I'll know I tried. I miss you. Not as my cousin, not as my sister, just as you, as Riley. The person who knows all my embarrassing middle school stories, who introduced me to good music, who taught me how to do winged eyeliner, the person who's been in my life through as long as I can remember. What happened at Christmas was terrible. The lie was terrible. The years of deception were terrible. I'm not making excuses for Mom and Dad. What they did was wrong, and we both got hurt by it. But here's what I keep coming back to. We're still us. The relationship we had wasn't fake. The memories aren't fake. The love isn't fake. Learning that we're sisters instead of cousins doesn't erase anything we've shared. If anything, it explains why we've always been so close. I know you need time. Take all the time you need. But when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. Because you're my sister, Riley. Not because of blood or DNA or what anyone told us, but because of all the years we've spent choosing each other. That part was always real. Love, Natalie. I dropped it in the mailbox and tried not to obsess over whether she'd respond. Summer came. I turned 27 in September. My parents sent flowers and a card that felt too cheerful for our fractured relationship. I was still speaking to them, but barely. We had dinner once a month, tense affairs where we talked about the weather and avoided any topic that mattered. Then, in October, almost a full year after the Christmas Eve explosion, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Hey, Riley's voice, small and uncertain. It's me. My heart stopped. Hey! Did you mean it? What you said in the letter? Every word. A long pause. I'm in Grand Rapids. Do you want to get coffee? I'll be there in an hour. I probably broke several traffic laws getting to the coffee shop she'd named, a local place called Madcap that we used to go to whenever I visited. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking thinner and more tired than I remembered. We stared at each other for a moment. I'm sorry, we both said at the same time, and laughed, this small, broken sound. You don't have anything to be sorry for, Riley said. Neither do you. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about therapy, about the identity crisis she'd been working through, about learning to separate the lie from her actual self. Dr. Chen, my therapist, says I've been experiencing prolonged grief. Grief for the mother I thought I had, for the family structure I believed in, for the version of myself that existed before Christmas Eve. I had to mourn all of that before I could start building something new. And have you built something new? I'm trying. She stirred her coffee, not meeting my eyes. It's weird. I've been thinking a lot about Diane. She's not my biological mother, but she raised me. She fed me, took me to doctor's appointments, helped with homework. That counts for something, right? It counts for a lot. But she was also so angry, so resentful. And now I understand why, which somehow makes it worse. She gave up her marriage, her life to raise me, and I was never grateful because I didn't know I was supposed to be. That's not your fault, I said firmly. I know, logically I know, but emotionally, it's complicated. She finally looked at me. And then there's Patricia. Mom, I don't even know what to call her. She's my mother, but she's also basically a stranger. I have 26 years of memories with her as my aunt, but none as my mom. How do I reconcile that? I don't know, I admitted. But maybe we can figure it out together. Riley's eyes filled with tears. I missed you so much. I missed you. We cried again, but this time it felt different. Like releasing something instead of drowning in it. Things didn't magically get better after that coffee. Rebuilding a relationship that's been blown apart takes time, patience, work. But Riley and I were trying. We started small. Texts throughout the day, phone calls on weekends. She came to Dearborn for Thanksgiving, though she stayed at my apartment instead of my parents' house. It was weird and awkward and nothing like our old Thanksgivings, but we got through it. The question of what to do about Mom and Dad, about Patricia and Robert, hung over everything. Riley had met with them a few times, tense conversations in neutral locations where everyone cried and apologized and tried to explain things that maybe couldn't be explained. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? I asked Riley one night in December, almost a year to the day after everything fell apart. We were at my apartment watching Christmas movies and avoiding any discussion of actual Christmas plans. Riley was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Part of me wants to, part of me thinks I never will, and part of me realizes that forgiveness isn't this binary thing where you either forgive or you don't. Maybe it's more like choosing to move forward even though you're still hurt. choosing to build something new instead of staying stuck in what was broken. That's very therapist of you, I teased gently. Yeah, well, Dr. Chen's got me sounding like a self-help book. What about Diane? Riley's expression darkened. That's even more complicated. She raised me, but she also weaponized the truth. She dropped that bomb on Christmas Eve not because it was time for honesty, but because she was drunk and angry and wanted to hurt someone. Probably wanted to hurt Patricia. I was just collateral damage. Have you talked to her? A few times. She's in rehab now, finally dealing with her drinking. She apologized, said she shouldn't have told me that way, but she also said she doesn't regret telling me, that I deserve to know. Riley shook her head. She's right, but that doesn't make what she did okay. We sat in silence, watching Home Alone, neither of us really paying attention. Are you coming to Christmas this year? I asked carefully. Riley sighed. I don't know. The thought of sitting around a tree, pretending everything's fine. We don't have to pretend. We could just be honest about how messed up everything is, about how we're all still trying to figure it out. Revolutionary concept, Riley said dryly. Honesty. It's Christmas Eve again, December 24th, 2023. I'm 27 now. Riley's 27 too. Well, she will be in March. We're still figuring out how to celebrate our birthdays now that we know we're siblings. Do we do joint parties, separate ones? The little logistics of rebuilding a relationship from scratch. We're at my apartment, not my parents' house. Riley and I decided to start our own tradition, something that belongs to just us. We've ordered pizza, we're drinking cheap wine, and we've got a Charlie Brown Christmas tree on my coffee table that we decorated with ornaments we bought at Target. Mom and Dad invited us over. We said maybe we'd stop by later. We probably won't. Diane's still in rehab. She sent Riley a card with a long letter inside. Riley hasn't opened it yet. Do you think it gets easier, Riley asks, looking at the tiny tree, living with this? I think it gets different. Not easier, not harder, just different. She nods slowly. I keep waiting to feel like I know who I am, like all the pieces will click into place and I'll suddenly understand my identity. And I'm realizing that's not how it works. I'm Riley. I'm the daughter of two scared teenagers who made a terrible choice. I'm the girl raised by a woman who resented me and loved me in equal measure. I'm your sister, your biological sister. And I'm still me. All the parts that were real before are still real now. It's just, there's more context. Therapy's really working for you, I observe. She laughs. Shut up. We're quiet for a while, watching the lights blink on our little tree. It's not grand or perfect. It's kind of sad, actually. This small tree in this small apartment. Two sisters who are still learning how to be sisters. But it's ours. And maybe that's enough. I'm glad we're doing this, Riley says softly. Our own Christmas. Our own tradition. Me too. Do you think we'll ever have a normal relationship with them, with Mom and Dad? I consider this. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I think we'll have an honest one eventually. And maybe that's better than normal. Riley raises her glass vein. To honesty, then, even when it destroys everything. I clink my glass against hers, especially when it destroys everything. We drink to that. To truth, to destruction, to rebuilding, to sisterhood, however we define it. Outside, snow starts to fall, gentle and quiet, Christmas Eve in Michigan. Some things never change, but we have, and we're still changing, and maybe that's the point. My phone buzzes. A text from Mom. Please come over, just for an hour. We miss you both. Love you. Riley sees it too. What do you want to do? I look at my sister, my complicated, hurt, healing sister, and I realize I don't have to decide alone anymore. What do you want to do? I ask back. She thinks for a long moment. Maybe we go for half an hour, just to see. If it's awful, we leave. Together? Together. So that's what we do. We finish our pizza, grab our coats, and drive through the snowy streets to the house where I grew up and Riley visited every holiday. The house that holds so many lies and so many truths all tangled together. Mom opens the door before we can knock. Her face lights up, then crumples, tears already streaming. "You came," she whispers. "Half an hour," Riley says firmly. "That's all we're promising." That's more than I deserve. We step inside. Dad's by the tree. A big, beautiful Douglas fir, just like always. He turns where he hears us, and the relief on his face is almost painful to see. "Thank you for coming," he says quietly. Nobody knows what to say after that. We stand there awkwardly, the four of us trying to figure out how to be a family when the definition of family has been rewritten. Finally, Riley speaks. "I'm still angry. I want you both to know that. I'm working on it, but I'm still angry." "I know. You have every right to be," Mom says. "And I don't know if I'll ever call you Mom. That word means something specific to me, and it's connected to Diane, even though she's not my biological mother. I don't know how to separate all of that." "You don't have to," Dad says. "We don't need titles. We just need a chance to be in your life, however that looks." Riley looks at me, and I can see the question in her eyes. Is this enough? Can we do this? I nod slightly, because maybe this is what healing looks like. Not forgiveness, not forgetting, but just showing up, being present, trying. "Okay then," Riley says finally. "Half an hour." Mom smiles through her tears. "Half an hour." We sit down in the living room, beneath the tree that's too big and too perfect, and we talk. Really talk. For maybe the first time in our lives. About the lie, about the pain, about the impossible choice two teenagers made 26 years ago. About Diane and her resentment and her sacrifice. About all the missed opportunities for truth. It's not comfortable, it's not easy. There are long silences and more tears and moments when I think Riley might bolt. But she doesn't. She stays. We both stay. And when half an hour turns into an hour and then two, nobody comments on it. We just keep sitting there under the Christmas lights, trying to figure out how to be something we've never been before. A real family. An honest one. Outside, snow keeps falling, covering everything in white, making the world look clean and new, even though underneath, everything's still the same complicated mess it always was. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's life. Maybe the truth doesn't fix things, it just makes them real. And maybe real is all we need. So there it is. My family's perfectly wrapped lie, unwrapped on Christmas Eve. If you stuck around to the end, you're the kind of person who actually cares about real stories, not just clickbait. Show me you're here by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a comment about your own family secrets, we all have them, and telling me where you're watching from. Turn those notifications on too, because I've got more stories that'll make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. Don't be like my parents. Don't keep things hidden. Engage with this video so others can find it too.